All right, so my friends, welcome. A complete set review of Explorer Anthology 3. Whoa. Don't boo me, all right? I'm just going over the cards, all right? So we did the Historic Anthology previously. Historic Anthology 7 is an absolute banger. But Explorer Anthology 3 here is a little unexciting, honestly. I'm not going to lie. We'll go through and we'll look through. See, Cyclonic Rift here is our first card. There's a lot of good Historic Brawl cards in this. And one of the fun things with the Explorer Anthologies also is they are legal in Historic. Also, you know, I love Historic, obviously. So it's kind of cool that Historic kind of gets like two anthologies at once. But the Explorer Anthologies, kind of the idea is supposed to be helping to bring Pioneer to Arena. But there's a lot of tension there too, you know, because the problem is if they put all the good cards in the anthologies, we need to get most of the cards in the format. You know, all like the B-list players and the weird fringe cards. But if we put all the good cards in the anthologies, then they can't really do their remaster releases because no one will actually want them because they already have all the good cards. So really, really awkward. I wrote an article about it on CoolStuffInc.com. Check it out. My full thoughts on that, how to solve that problem. But for now, let's go over the cards. Cyclonic Rift, obviously an absolute menace and commander. Interesting card for Historic Brawl. Almost a non-factor in Pioneer or Explorer. There are going to be a number of cards kind of like this in this anthology we'll go through. Also important to note, no white cards and no black cards in the entire anthology. So interesting. Albeit at Carol Keep, also another kind of stinker here. I want to love this card. I love prowess stuff. I love spell-based stuff. This card can do a lot of cool things in theory, but just never works out. You play it on turn 2. You can't play it on turn 2 often because you need to hit a card off of it. It's just like one of those cards that looks good and plays horribly. Sees no play in Pioneer, and I don't think it's going to see much play regardless. So kind of a bummer there. We get Shotlow Blast. I do like Blast a lot. Doesn't see a ton of play in Pioneer, but a very powerful card. Good to see access to it in both Historic and Explorer. The kind of card that could be good at any moment, honestly, because the effect is very, very powerful. So Blast is cool. I'm all about that one. We got Quarter Calling. That's a big one, right? That's a huge one for Historic and Explorer. Quarter Calling, kind of helping out kind of combo-y decks in Pioneer. Doesn't really help, or I can't think of a deck off the top of my head that plays Court of Calling in Pioneer at present, but it's a card that's seen a lot of play over and over again in various formats. We'll see this card at some point in Explorer and Pioneer. Good card to have access to. Idona Blossoms, also kind of a stinker. There isn't really an enchantment deck in Pioneer, and there are much better versions of this in Historic. Kind of a cool Historic Brawl card, I guess, but overall, not the most exciting of the bunch. We get Sylvan Scrying, which would be really, really cool, obviously, if all the other Lotusfield cards were here, but they are not. Good card to have access to, but realistically, until we see hidden strings and stuff for the Lotusfield deck really to take off, Scrying won't probably do too much. But there it is. No Tron lands either. We do see Worldspine Worm. Reduke won the Pioneer Pro Tour playing this card. My team played this deck at the Pioneer Pro Tour. It was a creativity deck with Worldspine Worm and Xenagos. Spoiler alert, Xenagos might also be in here too. So it is nice to see that enter the format, although there's been some debate in Pioneer what's better with Atraxa and Worldspine Worm and so on and so forth. But good one to see. Obviously, this one plays reasonably well, making the creativity deck an actual thing on Arena, which is cool. It's also just, a great card to sneak out, which is kind of cool. We get the Charm Cycle. Half the Charm Cycle. I'm missing some of the good ones here. Golgari Charm. This card's seen a little play in Legacy back in the day, honestly, but mostly, not really a factor. Very flexible, but realistically, killing an enchantment, saving your team from a Wrath, maybe a little -1/-1. Not really going to see too much play. We have Gruul Charm, kind of the awkward stepchild of the charms. This one's pretty bad. We've got Is It Charm, one of the more playable charms, honestly. Sees fringe play and kind of combo decks as far as discarding stuff, but not the most exciting card. I think this is a pretty overrated card in a vacuum, but if you're specifically trying to discard stuff and playing combo deck, it's okay. We got Orzhov Charm, cool with Death Shadow, so maybe an Historic this card could do something, but otherwise not the most exciting. And then Simic Charm, which is basically just a draft card, so not very exciting at all. We've got Deathrite Shaman. I'm very excited to see this card in Historic with no fetch lands, which is really, really cool. A card that sees very, very fringe play in Pioneer. Not really much of a card, obviously, without fetch lands. Of course, as a note, no Boros Charm in the charms. We only got half the charms, so you get that half of the charms, so that's a little annoying. But Shaman's great. This is the kind of card where I know it doesn't see a lot of play, but I'm very happy to see it in the format. It's a really, really powerful card. I'm excited to see it in Historic and see if it's possible to make this card work. And it's a good graveyard card if you're playing graveyard deck, which is kind of cool. So I like the idea of Deathrite Shaman being legal and being a kind of a cool build-around card that's not going to be overpowered. So I like this one. This is a cool one, honestly. Judges familiar. I it's just worse than Mausoleum Wanderer, right? Just not a very good card, but sure, I guess. Opposite that, Ghost Council, kind of a cool card. This card mostly sees play in Modern with Gore's Vengeance, but obviously there are better things to do with that as far as that goes, and it's not really it's kind of a relic, but not a relic in the sense of like Tarmogoyf or Snapcaster Mage. This is a relic that I probably won't see too much play, but it's cool. It's a fun card, fun historic brawl card. I don't hate cards like this being in the anthology, honestly, because they are like pretty fun, cool, classic cards. Historic brawl is a real format. I like supporting that format too, but we got Omnath, Locus of Rage, not quite up to the pedigree of the other Omnaths. Although this card, I think, has seen like a little bit of play as an elemental, maybe. I don't know. It's solid mana, 7 mana. Again, probably more of a historic brawl card, but not very exciting overall. We get Voice of Resurgence. That's a pretty decent one. This card sees a bit of play in Pioneer. It's also a good elemental for law elementals and stuff like that too. And this is one of the better ones, which is kind of saying something about the anthology, honestly. As Patrick Sullivan used to lament, this is basically a hard to cast Grizzly Bear a lot of the time. But a good sideboard card, good card to have access to in the format. And again, there are some cool elemental things happening with Risen Reef and stuff like that too. So it's a card I'm happy it's in the format. There have been times where I built a deck before on Arena and I've been like, I wish I had access to this card, and I named this card. So there you go. Good one to see. We get Xenagos. Obviously, Xenagos is primarily here to give World Spine Worm haste in the creativity deck. That's basically it, but that's great. It's got a job to do. It does it. You could play it Historic Brawl, whatever, but that's a job it does.
Somebody's playing a prank on me. Still a piece of garbage.
This is the one that Arena decided to tweet out. And the one that drew some ire. Honestly, pretty good engagement farming from the Arena Twitter team. Let's hear it for them, obviously. I take partial responsibility for this one. In my article on CoolStuffInc.com last week when I was discussing Explorer, I was talking about how it's really important to get the majority of the cards in the format onto the platform. You can't just take the top 50 cards in the format. That's not a format. A format is defined by all the cards in the format, not the best cards. Because there's going to be times you're building some crazy deck that wants some weird card, and if it's not in Explorer but in Pioneer, we don't have Pioneer on Arena. So I actually used the Quarter Shield as an example of a kind of card that looks like garbage, but could see play in a combo deck or something like that. And then, of course, the next day they tweeted that it was going to be in the anthology. This is the problem. So we need to get cards like this in the format, but we can't put them in anthology because they look like absolute garbage. More of my article about how to get the cards in. Check that out. I think Historic Horizons Jumpstart, Explorer Horizons Jumpstart, whatever. But yeah, Quarter Shield, Saram, Cheerios, whatever. To get it off screen. Get it off screen. Thespian Stage is a big one. This is one, obviously, it's a major player in Lotus Field combo. The cards aren't there for Lotus Field combo yet, but there's also been a blue-white control deck playing Stage along with Lotus Field, which is kind of cool. That deck is now playable on Arena, which is kind of cool. Powerful card in general, but yeah, no Lotus Field combo just yet. And then we get the freaking, whatever the cycle of lands is called, Canopy Vista, Cinderglade, Prairie Stream, Smoldering Marsh, and Sunken Hollow. Pretty not good cycle of dual lands, honestly. We see almost no play in Pioneer. Prairie Stream is seen as a one of, or it used to be back in the day, in blue-white controls, a fetch in Modern, and then Cinderglade sees play in Valakut decks in Modern. Both those criteria are not present in Pioneer or Historic. So yeah, the Tango lands here are pretty unexciting overall. They can't help you get planes in your deck for like laydown arms and stuff, but like this is really reaching here, So, and that's it. That's the whole anthology. So, not gonna lie, this is a pretty disappointing anthology for Explorer. But again, I sort of understand the bind that Wizards is in, because you can't just put the top 50 cards in the format in the next two anthologies, and then what? Now you can't sell your remastered sets. Now we can't get all of the, kind of fringe cards in the format too that are very important. So I don't know. Again, I discussed it more in my article. Let me know what you think the solution is. I don't know. Because I want to see Pioneer Arena. I know you do too. And I want to see it as fast as possible. And we are not getting there in a very reasonable time from here. And I don't like that much. So I'm going to do a 10 new brews for these anthologies next week. Probably going to skew mostly towards historic decks. Look for that next week. Should be a lot of fun. Otherwise, like, comment, subscribe. Hit all the buttons. I got the Pro Tour coming up. And I love y'all. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. And I'll see you fine folks in the next video. I'm out, folks. Peace.